Well, welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show. My name is Tom Dutta. I am the Quiet Warrior. I'm excited. We're live streaming today on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And by the way, find the YouTube channel Tom Dutta and subscribe so you can get the YouTube premiere of this amazing interview that we're about to do. Now you can see our guests there sitting patiently as I will introduce them in a moment. I wanted to tell everybody that most of my shows are unscripted and I haven't met the guests. That's what makes it authentic. We just have a conversation. I wanted to let you in, though, on a secret. Well, it's not a secret any longer. That yesterday I spent an hour with Chris Gazdik on his podcast. That'll be released in the future. So I feel like I know you a lot already, Chris. So let me tell everybody about the Chris so you can get a background, a bit about the depth behind this man. Chris is a mental health and substance abuse therapist. He's a podcaster and excited. He's written a new book. It'll be released this year, which we'll get into, called Through a Therapist's Eyes. And this man's done 25 years of this type of work. He's energetic, he's passionate, and he does public speaking as well. What I found most interesting about Chris's background is he's a licensed clinical social worker with a former certification in alcohol, tobacco, and other drug treatment. And for those of you who know my story, my book, and the things I'm passionate about, those threads cross right over into the mission of what I do. So everybody, welcome Chris Gazdik to the show. Welcome, Chris.
Hey man, thank you so much. I mean, it's really an honor to be on the Quiet Warrior. Probably one of the biggest honors I've had thus far in podcasting shows and such. So I'm really glad you had me on.
I'm just thrilled that you came on, and everybody. Chris is out there in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm up here in Vancouver, British Columbia, so truly an international connection. So, Chris, this is about the hero's journey. We talked about the narrative. You heard some of the shows. We bring people on who talk about how they got from where they started in life to really the discovery of who they are and why they're doing what they do today. We'll be maybe let's get back into that in a moment. We do want to talk about the new book that's coming out and really learn from you about the things that you do. So take us back wherever you want to start, man. Just where did it all begin, and just take us on the journey up to the point where I guess you started in this work as a therapist.
Absolutely, yeah. I'll tell you, it's fun to be on this side of it too. I don't even have like my clock. I usually forget to start hitting the button to see what time is it. I feel like I could just, like, as you like to say, riff, man. I could just go with it. So that's nice. That's super nice. I thought that I listened to your show and got an idea of what you do, and I was drawn to that for a lot of reasons. The theme that I thought I would throw out in the book, through a therapist's eyes, right? Like, dude, people put us on a bit of a pedestal, like we've got all these things figured out and all the thing, you practice what you preach. And that's absolutely true. I mean, we definitely, particularly after you've done it for, as long as I have, I hope I figured some stuff out, right? But the truth is, I mean, we have our own feelings, our own emotions, our own struggles. And as I've read about your work, Tom, the Quiet Warrior stuff that you've done, man, being a thought leader and being out there, being able to live it is really what I feel like you're all about. Like, I love your phrase, live in the stigma.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. We do that too. We are hopefully learning a little bit as we go, but we're trying to do that.
Yeah, well, let's get into that for a moment, because my mind went on a journey somewhere else when you said that about lived. Maybe I went to lived experience. I also had this vision of a word, secondary trauma, which I learned from a lady who recently did a TED Talk. She was a 911 operator and didn't know that the signs of PTSD, she actually had it, and one day she just lost it, got very ill. We go through our lifelines, as you said about my backstory. It's not about that today, but I want to just mention that somewhere along the lines, life isn't a straight line up. We have ups and downs, challenges. What's your biggest challenge, setback? What did you learn from it? And then why did you choose what I think is an amazing profession, but also one that can be kind of scary, because you're dealing with everybody else's, sometimes trauma and mental health issues, addictions?
Yeah, we call it compassion fatigue. That's the buzzword in all the trainings that we have now. I mean, you definitely have to practice what you preach insofar as self-care. I call that the cornerstone of mental health. And I'm
Yeah.
very passionate about mental health and substance abuse therapy and services and living it. I think what I want to go do is kind of answer both of those questions kind of at once and kind of bounce them up with you to kind of give, what I thought I'd do is, just a little bit of an example of what it is that, brought me to counseling. I think if I look at it in detail and kind of share some of what, some of my clients might be like, wow, I didn't know that side of them, because we all are real, we
Yeah.
all go through real things. So I think I could do that by describing a particular event, if you will,
Yeah.
when I was very young. And as with trauma and secondary trauma, your memory kind of gets fractured, so that you kind of remember some things and you piece things together. And over my career in my life, I've kind of tried to piece those things together. But I often go back to this, this one very critical moment. And it sent me off on a journey that was greatly full of insecurity and whatnot through a young man. And I do track a lot of it back to this. So, as you can imagine, back in the 80s when we were kids, you have meals together. Mom was a stay-at-home mom, and dad was a hardworking man in the aluminum producing factory. And I kind of got intrigued at what was going on during this particular meal. I remember this all very, very distinctly. My sister's sitting to my right, my brother sitting across the table. My mom's at the head of the table on the right, my dad's at the head of the table on the left. And we're doing this. We have meals together. So that wasn't odd, but it was odd when desserts showed up,
Yeah.
right? Why? That was my first tip. Like, something ain't right. And so we got dessert, and I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. That's nice. I like dessert. But now I'm kind of concocted in the back of my head, what's up? And there was a weird, airy feeling in the room, like something was about to drop. And it was probably one of the biggest things that ever dropped in my life.
Yeah.
And so we're eating dessert, settling down, and that feeling is just sucking into me. And they started talking, and I don't even remember what was said. I don't know who talked first. That's all kind of still pretty like weird for me. And it basically came down that dad was moving out. They were getting separated, and I shot up out of my chair and ran to my dad's lap and sat down, is what I remember and just sobbing.
Yeah.
And then it got even better, because they dealt with that, hugs a little bit, and minutes later it's, well, do you want to go see dad's apartment? And I walk
Right.
out, the car is packed, it's full, it's ready to go, and we're driving off to this apartment.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was a big deal. It was a big moment, and one that I'll never forget and have relived many times.
First of all, Chris, thanks for one of the things I love so far about this is you draw pictures. So you drew the picture of where mom and dad were sitting at the table and the sis and the brother. That's pretty awesome because I'm a visual learner. Thanks for giving us that. And I want to honor you for sharing your vulnerability. As a therapist, you know the importance of that. It's a strength. And I'll tell you that for the first time when you have somebody like you on a show and you tell us that story, you become real, man. You become
Right.
so real that there's people listening that's going like, holy, that was my story. That guy's a lot
Mm.
like me. So how old were you back then when that event
I'm
happened?
not exactly sure. I've thought about that many times over, and I knew I was going to tell that story. Which, by the way, I mean, I share stories in therapy with people.
Yeah.
My goal and hope is that it's 100% of the time for the benefit of the person. That's a golden rule that I teach young therapists
Yeah.
for. This is a little different though, because this is a show, so whoever hears it can be helped from it. That's great. I don't have to worry about that piece of it, which is nice. It's pretty freeing. But I was
Yeah.
pretty young, man, Tom. I was probably about 8 years old, nine,
Okay.
10
Okay.
or so.
Yep. I appreciate that. It's interesting because in some of the coaching work I do, as I've shared with you, and I deal with mainly people in business, leaders, and I mean, I remember a fellow who dealt with, they call it abandonment, but this one
Oh yeah.
event actually followed him subconsciously through his career. And in fact, there was
Absolutely.
moments in his career where he was, because he had fallen really hard, and moments in his career where he said that he would look at things that were successful and wonder if they were real or not. And so this is
Oh
all
yeah.
part of that. His dad leaves me, maybe I'm not good enough, or maybe this is all going to go away one day. It's amazing, the power of the mind. So
Hmm.
let's let's take it from there. So at age 8, and I know you're an expert in this, about the child's development of the brain. Then at what point did you decide that this is where I want to, this is my profession, I want to get into this? How old were you, and what happened?
Yeah, I don't really know, to be honest with you. It was stuff that just sort of began to develop. I think honestly, as therapists do, part of the benefit of our job, right? If you're talking with people and helping them through, you think about your own. So I think that pieced together over a period of time, because I remember struggling a lot. Then I was now in a single parent family, right? And dude,
Yeah.
we have government cheese. We make family jokes about getting fritters. I mean, it was rough, and
Yeah.
for a long period of time. And I remember being interested in psychology. So it was literally just like one of the classes that you take in high school. I thought, oh, wow, I'll do psychology. But I'll tell you what really made it super neat for me. And this is kind of a cool part of my story that actually a lot of people never knew in town here, because I watched my mom. You talk about a hero, man, dude. She's single parent, 3 kids.
Yeah.
She started working 1, 2, 3 part-time jobs. We lived in Wheeling, West Virginia. She lived and went to school in Morgantown. So that was an hour and a half commute to go to school
Yeah.
when she went to
Amazing.
grad school and stuff. Dude, she killed it. And
Wow.
so I think at the same time, we were kind of developing the same types of things. So when I saw like, oh, dude, that's what mom's going to be doing, like, that's pretty cool. I think it just matched up that way. So
Yeah.
high school psychology class.
I still remember my Psych 101 textbook. I
Yeah.
think it was a crimson color. The one thing you just said, which made me think about your mom, and we'll honor that. We should all honor all our moms, but there's resilience there. And
Oh
where did you
boy.
get where did you get the resilience, or however you want to talk about it, and through your eyes? There's kids who at age 8 have that same event happen, and they go down the dark side. They as in the work you do, maybe addictions, maybe suicidal, maybe they end up on the wrong side of the tracks, with the law. They really never get past that and can't feel worthy enough. How did you get, like, you obviously seem to make it through that? What would you attribute that to?
I don't know that I can say a moment, Tom, to be honest with you. It's an interesting question and a thought. I think that what my brain goes to when you ask about that is the grind. Like
Mhm.
I really, I'll just tell you what popped in my mind when you said that. You took me to um, a high school class that, now, I had struggled a lot with all of that stuff. And abandonment, by the way, is absolutely the right word. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a lot of way. And a lot of people experience their own abandonment in much more dramatic ways. We just covered an amazing lady, Leslie, on our show that had literally was like dropped off at somebody's doorstep. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
all relative to what we're experiencing, right? And what our experiences are. So, junior high and even a little bit of elementary school, however old I was struggling and grinding and trying to find my feet and get grounded with things. And I remember very much in part of that grind, to answer your question, how did you get the resilience, man? I struggled in school. You could see where my grades just dropped and then,
Yeah.
slowly built. Somebody put me in an honors class, biology, with the
Right.
smart kids, right? And I was like, dude, I am going to do well in this class. Like, I want this. And so I pounded that out, and I got an A. Melissa Puz, I use you out there. I don't know if you're ever going to hear this, but I'm like, I was in the same class with Melissa Puz, and I got an A there, man. So that was a moment of success. I think that's a grind. It's persistent, and different moments build upon themselves.
That's pretty cool. Going back to your father, is he still alive today? I
He
didn't.
is. He is.
And
Yeah.
and when you went through that shift, obviously when Dad moved out, you got to go see the new apartment. Were both parents still involved in the kids' lives?
Yeah, that's where a lot of the abandonment stuff probably took hold. I mean, they let's just how should we put that? They didn't have exactly a calm process.
Yeah,
I'll put it that way. Yeah, they struggled. I mean, which makes it tougher for the kids in a
for
lot of
sure.
ways. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
absolutely. Yeah, and I remember I asked that question from personal experience. My parents, I think I was in my early teens when it happened, but I married a woman who, and I, became a stepfather to two stepsons. So saw another family go through the same kind of adjustment, and I just remember learning through my own development that when we're that age, everything we hear and see kind of gets wired in us as the truth. So what parents, just I want your opinion on this, what parents say and do during these changes in their lives is very, very important, right? In terms of how it impacts the development of their children.
It really is. I mean, sometimes I've done counseling experiences with people that are separating. You call it separation counseling and dealing with the
Yeah.
whole family and stuff. Because I've actually literally said multiple times and throughout my life, like, the way to tell your kids is exactly not the way we were told. Really, I don't know if I've ever said that to either of them, and both, they hear this, it's okay. We're through it. We're in a much better place. But that was horrible. And
Yeah.
there are ways to really mitigate the impacts, to mitigate the pain that gets created from something that you're deciding to do in the family, even if you need to do it. Or there's guidance to reach out for to get in how to do that.
Well, we're going to get into the book in a minute, so this might be in there. But that was a teaching moment on the show. Is there a nugget you can give? Just one small thing you can give guidance to parents going through that, in terms of to lessen the impact or on the kids?
Yeah, and it does come from my own personal experience, probably more than anything clinically I've learned. But in the therapy realm, genuine. I think people are afraid to let other people know. See, whether you're dealing with trauma, letting somebody know your trauma, or letting somebody know what you're struggling with, or letting somebody know what you're afraid of, kids can handle a lot more than what we give them credit for. And so when you're kind of really trying to protect them, oftentimes we're actually harming them and don't realize it. So letting them know genuinely, look, mommy and daddy had a fight last night, okay? And we're really stressed out with each other right now, but we're going to work through it, right? Or, you know what? Yeah, mommy and daddy are really kind of upset and we're thinking about separation, not sure. Yeah, I mean, you don't want to bring kids up on an adult level and include them in adult information. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they can handle a little bit of genuineness. When they see you fighting, they know something's up, right?
Yeah.
Let's just be genuine about that.
I think that's very, very insightful. And everybody, it's another teaching moment there. You heard from Chris that, I think I agree. I mean, I remember my parents having fights, and it's like,
oh yeah,
come on, do you think
your ears just up on the wall?
Yeah, and it's like
something's wrong.
Yeah, and I think it also teaches you in life, when you go on life, it gives you a sense of the reality of life. In other words, I remember when I was younger, my family or my mother had kind of kept death away from us, so I never experienced grief, never funerals. And when I had my first run-in with it was when Anna's mom passed away. I mean, I'm a grown man and I didn't know how to process it. I didn't know how to deal with it. It's crazy. So I want to throw some at you to talk about that. You chose this profession. Amazing. I'm going to just read a couple things here for everybody. Mental health and substance abuse therapist, and some of the areas: alcohol, tobacco, drug treatment. I have a friend who I might have said to the other day, who went through a difficult time growing up and wanted to be a you.
Oh dear, be careful.
Yeah, I know. But he didn't be a you. He became head of a company. Let's say, I don't want to identify him. And when I said to him, well, wow, he volunteered it in a coffee meeting. He said, the reason why is I probably would have killed half the parents I was trying to help.
Oh, you did say that, yeah.
Yeah. And so that's the last thing I want to ask you. Then we'll move into talking about the book. Is that you chose this career, and you went through some learnings along the way in your own life. How do you, I don't know if you keep objective or process all the stuff that people are just laying on you? How do you self-care, and how do you stop? I'm sure you see a lot of bad people sometimes. Maybe I'm wrong.
It's stressful, and there are a lot of emotions that can kind of get thrown around. I mean, my family and friends oftentimes ask me, right, like, how do you talk to people about their problems all day? And that's what I do. I mean, here you see, this is really where it happens. This is my office, and I do have to practice what I preach. You know what? I'll tell you in real time. I am stressed out a little bit right now. I've had a lot going on. We recorded with you yesterday. I usually like to sit down on Sundays, and the whole weekend I was actually pretty busy. So I've had a busy day today. You know what I'm going to be doing at 7 p.m.? I can guarantee you. NBC, I'm going to be watching the Pittsburgh Penguins play the New York Rangers today.
There you go. All right.
Right?
That's
You
it.
have got to be able to unplug, and I call it the cornerstone of mental health. The self-care is what that's called. And a lot of therapists will talk about it, but yeah, I mean, that's so crucial to be able to, when I leave my office, I really literally try to shut that down and transition with the commute
Yeah.
home. And when I get home, the first thing I do, this armor right here is coming off.
Love it.
I put my home clothes on. This stuff is literally, and if I have a very stressful day, I'll wash my hands, when I'm doing that and do some rituals. Because, yeah, one of the things I love about your work, Tom, truly is people do not realize in the corporate world, you look up to these people. They're so productive. They're so successful. One of the things I love about the platform we're trying to build, human beings have emotions and feelings. That's not a news flash, but it's a news flash when we realize we have to manage them and deal with them. And if we don't, they deal with us.
Yes.
And people struggle with that. I'm kind of amazed at how much that serves as a challenge for people, to be honest with you.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I've talked about this openly a lot about how when you get to, let's just say you get to a level of leadership, because right now I'm talking about people who have authority, responsibility. And for some reason, maybe it comes from our fathers teaching us you got to be tough and strong, but there just is this unwritten rule in the corporate sector that I've experienced that you can't show your weakness or your vulnerability because it's a weakness, which is absolutely, this is bizarre, but in the coaching, when I work with people, I'll ask them that, okay, vulnerability, tell me what it means. So they try to explain it. And is it a strength or a weakness? And everybody says weakness. The men always say weakness.
Right.
And I'm like, no, listen to Chris. It's not. Being vulnerable is actually, it's a strength. And when you do it, just like you did it again about, you've been a little stressed out and tonight you're watching hockey. Yeah. I'm going like, now I can tell you that today's my day off and I've been working all day and I'm a little stressed because I'm tired and I want to go and have some fun.
Sorry, man.
Yeah. It's all your fault. And
I know.
Can it come sit on that couch over there for a bit and talk about it? No.
Let's hang out.
So let's get into the book now. Hold it up so we can see it. Everybody, tell us the title.
It's a book and a platform, really. It's through therapy.
Was that your idea of holding it up? Put it closer. So I can see it.
Okay, here it is. The thing's messing me up.
All right.
I guess
I wanted to see the big eyeball messing with me. There it is.
Yeah, we said we were going to get two of them, and they're looking at you, and we can have a lot of fun with that. Yeah, but it's more than to me. It's a platform. To me, like, dude, I have been so passionate about trying to kind of guide this process of understanding our emotions, our feelings, how we go about, I'll tell you, recently I saw, we lost Mr. Rogers.
Yeah.
Now, he was way ahead of his time. Amazing man. And I grew up with him and looking back on that, like he's just doing what we're trying to do with the Truth. Is that better, Tom?
Yep.
the Truth Therapist process or platform is really trying to guide that. Like on our show, we talk about substance abuse and marriage and parenting. And, you said in the corporate world, it's specific to that. And Tom, I would challenge you with that and broaden that. We have that behind the police lines, the men and women in the blue, sorry if I can go on a long rant, people in the military, people that are divorced, people that are single, people that have never been married. We all feel like what we're dealing with, we're alone with. Like other people can't relate or realize what we're dealing with. And dude, when you come out and you clip in with just your next door neighbor and you tell them, hey, I'm struggling with this, what you're going to find is automatically people are going to then have permission to do exactly what you did. Oh, I'm stressed out. I'm supposed to be off today. We reveal, we're genuine, we connect. And so I really like to say on the Through a Therapist's Eyes platform, like, let's figure this out together. That's like kind of a bit of a passion and a tagline, but I really mean it.
Yeah. Listen, I want to brag a bit about the book. Everybody, I will receive a signed copy of it, and it's being
You
published
will.
soon. And I will be reading it. And I highly recommend that everybody gets a copy of this. It should be on your resource library, and I will use it in my coaching practice to give out to others. But for the most part, everybody, we have a common thread. The publisher, Maury James Publishing, is working with Chris. And Chris isn't a new author, I don't believe, but
I
when
am.
Chris is a new author. There you
Yes, I
go.
am. Yeah. It's been a
And
crazy new world and a big ride, man. I tell you.
yeah, so I want to say I'm proud of you because I did my first one in 17, and you know what? We don't know people don't know we are and who are what our work is. So everybody get the book and provide a review. Make sure that you go to Amazon or Goodreads.com, wherever you post reviews for books. But it's important that we get the word out. It's a beautiful cover. Hold it up one more time. Uh, All right. It's Through a Therapist's Eyes. Now, on the podcast, you're listening. You can't see it, but it's a beautiful cover. The book's called Through a Therapist's Eyes. And when is it being published, or is it already out there?
So it is out there in the Kindle now, but I guess the release date is March the 16th for the paperback. Now I'm a paper
Okay.
guy. I couldn't read the electronic version, so it's coming
Oh,
out soon.
awesome. It's funny you said that. I was just talking to somebody this morning about learning styles, and it really helped me understand that one of my learning styles is kinesthetic, holding physically and feeling. So I listen to a lot of audiobooks, but I'm not getting fulfilled. So I'll be holding that one. I need the
Yeah.
physical book. So tell us about, without giving away the whole book, we don't have that much time, but tell us about the book. What is it about? How, describe what you're doing there. What are people going to get out of it?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And I'd love to give it away. I mean, we give away a lot of stuff on our podcast because I mean, I am constantly creating,
Yeah.
thoughts that are helpful and they're real for my therapy practice. I mean, when I do a show topic, it's generally because it's come up in my therapy practice. And
Yeah.
that's what this book was. I mean, it was born from years ago. I mean, like a lot of years ago, I just didn't launch this stuff through a therapist's house until I got a little gray and it doesn't look gray, but I got a lot up there and, haircut gets cut and I'm like, what happened? Anyway, I do digress. So I feel like I've got some viability here.
Yeah, we're going full screen now. The podcasters can't see. Look at all that gray. My goodness.
Yeah, it's there, dude. I'm telling you, it doesn't. You can't. I got bad lighting.
I'm gonna have to do some serious editing using Adobe to give you a black haircut or something. Anyway,
I'll tell you one thing I don't do is color it. Can I make the listening audience clear on that? Anyway, and people could cover it's fine. No. So like years ago, I just found that I was saying the same things, multiple times to people that were found helpful in the therapy session. And so I thought, well, let me find some creative ways to say these things.
Mhm.
And then as I found creative and cool ways to say them, these phrases started popping. And I thought, you know what? I need to write this down. I don't even think, maybe it was a bit God-driven. In fact, a lot of ways this stuff probably is. Because I don't know why I really started writing them down, to be honest with you, Tom. I don't think I intended to write a book when I first started to write them down, but I started writing them down in multiple phrases and quotes kind of kept on coming and kept on coming. And I mean, I got a book that travels with me and I write them down. I've got a few different book writing projects to come that I want to write more down because one's on marriage and parenting. And so these are real therapy moments. Like I will stop in the middle of a therapy moment and write one of these things down. And from that, I just wrote, a few pages on each one of them to kind of give a depiction and an understanding of what this tip is, what this thought was, what was helpful to that person in that moment. So it's almost like you really get one of my person's clients read it and they're like, man, I feel like I'm in session. And I thought, wow, I should probably market it that way, right? Like, because it's kind of true.
Yeah, I'm intrigued, and I want to tell you this because you maybe can't see this because you've been doing it for so long, but they say certainly that you never walk alone when you're going through chapters in your life. You need to have a mentor, you need to have somebody there, a coach, and even where I come from in business, when you need to talk about things or learn, you have people around you. Is this a book? It sounds like if I read it, it doesn't replace therapy, but
Right. Of
give
course.
me give me an example of, you were just telling us about these ideas. Give us an example about one,
Oh yeah.
if you can do it.
Give me a number 1 through 30. How about that? That's the way I like to do that.
All right, let's do 17.
17. That would be
My daughter's birthday.
sweet. It's not easy to understand how to be a man or woman. That's not a great quote. The quote probably comes in the thing, but that's something that I wrote about. Kind of, it's kind of funny. We were talking about that actually, with role models. I think you and I at some point yesterday or
Yeah.
some point during the
Yeah.
conversation today, and and I go through and kind of look at how do you choose that. Be careful who your friends are. Look at how you manage understanding becoming a man or a woman, because you get a lot of crazy things from nowadays with social media.
Yeah.
Right. And so I remember being from a divorced family and trying to figure out, particularly as dad was kind of more gone, mom was there. How does a dude figure out how to be a man? Well, I mean, I picked like 3 or 4, one of them was my band instructor.
Yeah.
So I tried to look at those characteristics and look at those traits and choose who you want to model after, because sometimes, not necessarily my situation, but sometimes you can have terribly destructive immediate role models that you don't want to go through that. So I talk about in that particular chapter how to do that. It's not easy to know how to be a man or a woman.
Okay, I'm starting to get a picture now. I'm more excited about the book. So another teaching moment, everybody. That here you have stories. So Chris has written down thoughts through his years of practice, and he's creating stories to teach through his eyes. And there was a simple example. I'll play it back again because I want you to hear it. If you just joined us live, that if you, like me, grew up without a father figure after an early point in your life, how do you replace that? How do you be a man when there's no man to teach you? And he actually gives some thoughts, tips, strategies on that. I think I love that. I love it a lot. There's got to be many more topics, so I'm sure we're going to get you to plug the book at the end. I want to shift
Well,
for
can I throw one out real quick
yeah,
too, because it's a better quote. It
go
gives
for
them
it.
a better characterization in number 17. You picked the wrong one.
Yeah,
Number 27, right? We experience the most what we focus on the most. And then we go in and talk about focus points and, and those types of things. So it's kind of like these phrases just busted out at me like that one. And I wrote it down, and I think it's really kind of cool that hopefully people can get benefit as a reference guide almost.
I love it. So basically, if a layman can read this, somebody doesn't have to be sophisticated as a therapist. This is written through your eyes to teach us. That's really cool. What number was that one you just read, the quote?
I forget, 22 or something like that.
Uh,
Tom Layman can write it. I'm from West Virginia. If I wrote it, it could definitely, it's dumbed down.
Yeah, I keep looking, everybody. I'll just full screen it here. Sorry if you're on the podcast. You'll have to go watch the YouTube on the Tom Dutta channel. There it is. There's a big West Virginia
That's right.
rug on the wall there, and that's part of your development, man. You went there and graduated Magna Cum Laude.
I
Talk about
did.
smart,
Yeah.
smart people. One thing I like about you, by the way, is this because you don't have an ego. You're humble. You didn't brag yet. And I think that what makes you very relatable, yet you have a depth of knowledge. Everybody, this book seems to be something that can help uh, a variety of people. I'm going to challenge you on one thing you said about a future book. I'd even love to collaborate in some way. I grew up
Hmm.
step parenting 2 kids at age 12, and they were 9 and 12.
Oh
And
boy, that's a tough
they,
time
dude,
to come in as a step parent.
okay,
Like
listen to
that's,
this.
yeah,
Check this out. I need the couch. I need the couch right now, if you don't mind.
gotcha.
That I come out of my first marriage, so I'm 30 years old, and I have no kids, and I'm into this beautiful marriage with my wife Anna, who's now 25 years. We've been married this month, and these 2 wonderful kids come along. But man, nobody wrote the rule book on how to step parent. I did all the wrong things. So you know what? I went to the library because I'm a geek. I go find books. I try to learn, and I found a book called "Surviving in the Step Family." And it had this ridiculous percentage on the back that I think it was like 90 something percent of step families end up in divorce. And I'm like, I remember looking
Yeah.
at and saying to Anna, right, one of Anna's friends said to me privately after a drink, I think he said, "Are you sure you're ready for this?" And because the kids had gone through the same traumatic experience, losing their dad and all this stuff that I did, I had no idea what would come from it. It was like a roller coaster of emotions. It was like a honeymoon period. Then there was the anger and the aggression. Then their brains developed. And I remember I'll just finish with this, that for a long time when I said goodnight to them, I'd get upset and hurt because it's kind of my person that they didn't say, "I love you." They'd say, "Love you, Mom," but
Mm,
they didn't. And then
right.
later I read in the book, and the book said, you can't give them they have one loyalty to their father. You can't make them expect them to say, I love you. They call you Tom or whatever. So
Yeah.
that would be a great uh, chapter in a book, I'm sure. Let's go
Oh,
back.
absolutely.
Let's
Yeah.
go back to a couple of things as we're going to wrap up in just a few minutes with you. That the platform, what do you mean by that?
The platform of Through a Therapist's Eyes and all that it kind of entails, we're growing it and trying to get kind of the word out for the purpose of blowing up stereotypes and myths and misperceptions and disseminating information. Like, I got to tell you, you're just making my head buzz. And I got to say this because I'm passionate about it, get it out to where people can hear that. Like, when you're a step parent, one of the things I try to help people is understand the younger a kid comes in, the more like a parent you are, though you're never a parent. The older a step kid is, the more like a friend you are, though you're never a friend. And dude, you came in, what you just told me is you came in right at the most difficult time, right in the middle there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that is a hard sell. That's a hard situation to step into. So I had to throw that out there. Yeah, it's just a platform just like that, right? Just like I did. I mean, all these different, look, there are so many areas of life that we're challenged with that, like you said, in the corporate world for sure, but in just the daily neighborhood, we don't talk about these things, and it drives me nuts. Like, I want
Yeah.
to talk about them.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny when we're talking about kids and parents leaving. I just had the thought pop in my head about the fact that the military families, how many
Oh
parents
yeah.
get shipped off, and they may some of them don't come back. I mean, it's just such an important body of work that you've created there. So we're gonna
And
do this. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, and I'll tell you, just I've learned so much by talking to so many people. I think that's why I waited to launch with Through a Therapist's Eyes, because you know what I learned, Tom? Military family gets that sort of mantra of that. Do you know fishing families are much the same way? So families that are, their main breadwinning, they're fishermen, and they literally go from port to port to port to spot, and the kids completely jump around. I had a client that taught me that. So it's just like that. Like, who would think about talking about the same things that a military kid would deal with that a fisherman's kid would deal with? Who knew?
What a Who knew? What a great perspective. And just by saying
Yeah.
that, and I can imagine if that's a line in a book that you have there, if it was, I would probably think of all the other professions. So it's great perspective where, they're away. Uh, uh, I remember the going back and researching when the dads actually started going to work. And I read something that before the Industrial Revolution, the moms and dads worked on the farm. And they
Hmm.
worked on the farm together, but they would sit at the dinner table at night, and dad was always there, and they parented the kids together. And then the Industrial Revolution happened, and it just so happened that the men had to go out to the factories and work. And guess what? All that hard work stayed on mom's shoulders. And now all of a sudden,
Hmm.
dad's gone. And yeah, wow.
Yeah, it's
All right.
fascinating. Yeah, to think
Yeah,
of how things have changed in our experience. And we've got one with social media that we talk about on our show that's
yeah,
tremendously impacting us now. So,
yeah. That would be we'll have you back talk about that one too, because that one's on my mind, particularly
mm.
about things like bullying and all those other
Oh, yeah.
aspects of, and filtering out unnecessary information for young kids. You can't really do that anymore. So what I want to do now is just honor you with some what I call leadership words. I write these down. Those who are listening can't see that, but I'm turning my head a lot, writing as you're talking, not scripted. The first one is wisdom. You got 25 years plus, but also through the eyes of a therapist and through people, I kind of see you as an extension of thousands and thousands or hundreds and hundreds of people and their stories. You got a lot of wisdom. Number two is hope. When I talk to you, and just with some of the things you said, that nugget story about replacing a father to learn how to be a man, uh, you're a picture of hope, because they gave me hope. Other people, they don't know that. Number three is resilience. From the story you told about your early years and how your mom mentored you, but you are resilience, man, in a big
Mm.
way. Being able to take people and have them in your office there and talk to them all day, take on their worries, help them through it, and yet you still have this incredible energy, and then positivity. Just it's there, it's real, and I love it. It gives me a really good feeling. I love you and your story, and so. Uh, Let's get you to give the last word before I give you the award I want to give you today. How do we get a hold of you in the book? Tell us where people can go to get all that.
Yeah, thank you. That's it's really humbling to hear you kind of say those types of things, and thank you for that. I mean, man, you made my day. Like, the rest of the evening is going to be awesome, man. I'm going to have to just suck that in. So thank you. I've learned how to just say thank you sometimes, and I think that's a moment now. So Through a Therapist's Eyes is our website, throughatherapist'seyes.com, and Amazon.com. The podcast is on all the places you would expect to find, Spotify and Apple iTunes and that type of thing. What else? I don't know. Marketing. I need to get a marketing person to throw that stuff out there, man. I probably Google my name, which is hard to spell. You can find that out there as it pops up. Challenge to just spell it.
Perfect. All right, everybody, throughatherapist'seyes.com, and the book comes out in March. We're going to try and release the YouTube premiere and the international podcast or somewhere close to that so we can get a buzz on it. Everybody get that book. I highly recommend it. And please don't just get it, read it, and give it a high rating on Amazon, wherever you post book reviews, so we can get Chris's work out there. Now I'm going to induct you into the Quiet Warrior Tribe. I don't know if I told you this, but you're getting an award today. And so let's do this. I'm going to put myself on full screen. Just hold on. Whoops. There you go. I'm trying to click my mouse. And
well, while you're figuring it out, I'll tell you, Tom, honestly, I've listened to your show a couple times, and I am kind of a sentimental person, and I wasn't sure what was going to happen with that, but the way you do that, and dude, that's humbling. I'll tell you in advance, that's humbling.
Oh, thank you. Well, there it is. So when I created the show, I wanted to create an award, and this is you see behind me there's a picture of a guy, kind of looks a little bit like a guy I know. And these are challenge coins. The challenge coins were created in World War I, and they were carried by soldiers to commit to each other in union of some mission. If you carried it and you didn't bring yours, one guy would buy drinks. Maybe you'd have some fun with that. Today, these coins are carried around the world by first responders, military, even in AA, where my father was for 23 years. He got a chip every year. The back of the coin is the hero's journey narrative, beautifully illustrated. The front, as you can see, is the show art, and it's hand-painted and crafted, raised letters, comes in a cherry box. And by carrying this, you commit to continuing to, with your purpose, take action and change the life of others, live the life that you desire. There's less than 50 a year that will be put out into the hands of people on a planet of 8 billion. And every time you look at this coin, I want you to know that you're connected to now probably 150 people around the world in 8 countries who are doing incredible work and have gone from adversity to making an impact in the world. So welcome to the Quiet Warrior Tribe.
That's humbling. It's quite an honor, man. Like I said, I'm pretty sentimental, and I will absolutely carry that with me as a positive reminder as I'm wanting to launch. We'll do it.
All right. Well, fantastic. Well, thanks again for being on the show, Chris, and we'll have you back again.
I would love it. I absolutely would love it.
All right, everybody, find that true passion like you see from Chris here. Live that life of purpose and live the life that you deserve and desire. Thank you, Chris.
All right.
Stand by.